Hello and welcome to today's granny square tutorial. Although the center is not the traditional granny square, but today is actually officially the granny square day of the year, and I was asked to reproduce one of these squares. And this is my pattern, so let's hope that I will be able to do so. I have this as a guidance, and I have some leftover yarn here so that we can do it. First of all, I'm using a 4mm hook, and the yarn is just your standard cotton yarn. We start by making a slip knot. Chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and then we slip stitch into the first chain to join for a ring. Now we've got the ring, and we're making 12 half double crochets into this ring, but first I have to raise my hook by making 1 chain, and then, as I said, 12 half double crochets into this ring. So we're going to make 1, 2, and this might be a little bit fiddly. I am working over my tail so that I don't have to work it in afterwards. 3, and I'm going to slip stitch into my first half double crochet. Fasten off yarn by making a chain 1, pull yarn through, snip it right here. Pull tight. Now this is the first round. Again, make a slip knot in any way you are used to do it. And then we're going to work 2 half double crochets back loop only into each stitch. Don't start where you left off, but rather move to the left or the right in any of the other stitches. That way you avoid that it's so obvious where you've started all the time. And we're working in the back loop only. Go into the back loop of a stitch, make a slip stitch to secure the yarn, and then you make 1 chain to raise your hook, and we are working over the yarn tail again. Make 2 half double crochets back loop only into each stitch. So that's 2. I'm going into the next one, working over my yarn tail. 3, 4, 5, 6, 24. Now better to count your stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22, 24. Now slip stitch into your first half double crochet. Make a chain 1, pull through, cut your yarn. This is the second round of our square. Now, next we have the spikes, the spike stitches here. This is very light. I don't know if you can actually see it. I think we're going to use a lighter color to make it more visible. So for our example here, I'm going to use the light color. Spike stitches are just long single crochets, really. So what you do is you make another slip knot, you put it on your hook, pull tight, and then we are going to do a spike stitch into each of the stitches of the first round. That's why we worked into the back loop only, because we need the front loops for this. So just start anywhere you want by pushing through the whole stitch here. So you're coming on the back, out on the back. You pull up the loop and you pull it really to the height of your second row, and then you're making the extended stitch, the spike stitch, a long single crochet. Now this is our first spike stitch. Chain 1, work in your next stitch of round 1, pull up your loop. There you go. Chain 1. And here again. This is really fun. Just make sure that you pull the loop high enough. Don't forget the chain 1. 1, 2, 3. You should have 12 spike stitches. I'll see you at the end of this round. 11. Chain 1. 12. Chain 1. Slip stitch into the top of your first spike stitch and fasten off your yarn. That's our third round, done and dusted. Now, next color. This is fun. Now, as you can see here, we are going to do puff stitches in the next round, and then we need lots of yarn for the outer granny stitch area. Now I'm going to use dark orange for the puff stitches. Again, make a slip knot, holding your slip knot on your hook, yarn over, hold this tight, go into one of your spike stitches, and then pull up a loop a little bit higher than usual, yarn over, go back into your stitch, and pull up a loop. Do that 4 times. So that was 1, 2, 3, 4. Yarn over and pull through all loops and close the puff stitch with a chain 1. Now we're going to chain 2, so it's a 3 chain in total, but the first chain is only for closing your puff stitch. Now yarn over and make another puff stitch in the same stitch. So 1, 2, 3, 4, yarn over, pull through all loops, and chain 1 to close. Now that's your first corner. Don't worry if this is a little bit loose. You're not going to see it later. Make a chain 1 and then make a puff stitch into your next stitch. Chain 1 to close and chain 1 before you make the next puff stitch in the next stitch. Chain 1 to close. I think that looks good. Now we are at a corner again. So chain 1, make your puff stitch, your first one, in the next stitch. Chain 1 to close, chain 2, and make another puff stitch in the same stitch. Chain 1 to close, chain 1. Now repeat this until we all around. I'm going to see you at the end of this round to show you where you slip stitch into to close the round. I'm closing the last puff stitch with a slip stitch or chain 1. Do another chain 1, and then I'm going to slip stitch not into the beginning of a puff stitch, but in that chain 1 where I closed it. So that way, and slip stitch into the corner space, chain 1, and fasten off your yarn. Now, this was round number 1, 2, 3, 4. Done and dusted. Micro blocking with your fingers. So let's do the final bit, the granny stitches around it. I'm going to use the dark color again, or you can play around with your colors. If you would like to join these squares later, then you might want to use as your granny stitch color the one which you have the most of, and if it's a blanket or a cardigan, then it's the color which will be the background color of, or the main color. 3 double crochets plus chain 2 plus 3 double crochets in the corners, and then 1, 2, we have 3 spaces in between where we do 3 double crochets as well. So I'm going to start in one of the corners, not the one where I fastened off, and I'm going to do a slip stitch and a chain 2, which doesn't count as a stitch, and then I'm going to make 3 double crochets, 1, 2, 3, okay, chain 2 to make the corner space, and in the same space make another 3 double crochets. But I think I don't have to finish the whole square. You probably know how granny squares are working. Now, you don't have to chain anything, just work 3 double crochets into this space here, 3 double crochets into this space, 3 double crochets into this space. Let's do this. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, 3. Now we are at the next corner here, there. Make 3 double crochets, chain 2, 3 double crochets into the corner. And we're going to repeat this sequence all around. I'm going to see you at the end of this round. Now I'm at the last chain space. I'm going to make 3 double crochets into it. 1, 2, 3. I'm going to slip stitch into each of these 3 double crochets we've made at the beginning. Don't do the slip stitch into the chain 2 which we made, but into the first stitch top. So 1, 2, 3, and then slip stitch into the chain space in the corner. Now you can do the same thing again and again and again until you're reaching the desired size of your square. In other words, chain 2, which doesn't count as a stitch, make the 3 double crochets, chain 2, 3 double crochets, then 3 double crochets into each space between the 3 stitches, and so on and so on. And in the end, you've got something like this. So I've made here 1, 2, 3, 4 rounds of the granny stitch. And then you can join this. But more about joining methods next time. Thank you for watching, and I hope that I was able to show you in an adequate way how I did my squares, and I hope to see you next time. Bye!